William and Kate decided to emerge from their respective bunkers to attend the BAFTAs, which experts suggest means 6 more weeks of deflection. The reluctant pair looked as if they'd been compelled to attend under duress. Kate's hair was so disheveled, one had the impression that she was yanked out of bed and forced to pull something out of her closet last minute. William didn't look much more enthused. Throughout the night, he appeared to be actively trying to avoid even looking at her. But the revelation of his charity's involvement in the Epstein debacle meant he had to pull every distraction out of his arsenal, which meant that he suddenly remembered that he's president of BAFTA. Never mind the fact that he never bothered watching any of the films. The pair looked thoroughly annoyed to be there. Kate looked like she was coming down hard off of benzos. The whole affair was giving deliverance. And folks, didn't I predict this? After months of deliberately ignoring Kate, William was forced to once again play his part in the happy couple whitewashing. His clenched jaw said it all. Meanwhile, over at Clarence House, Camilla was busy as ever, with Amanda Platel writing a piece on William, in which she claims that William lacks the stamina of his elders, essentially accusing him of being a part-time royal who prioritizes privacy over the survival of the crown. Platel pulled no punches, contrasting William's dwindling diary of engagements with the relentless work ethic of Charles and Anne. She even went on to suggest that his refusal to man up in the Andrew crisis makes him a liability to the institution. Ouch! Folks, didn't I tell you they're at war? Charles's camp is trying every which way till Sunday to expose William, who continues to undermine him in a blatant attempt to force him into abdicating. Now let's talk about Kate for a minute here. A day before, she was seen attending the rugby final with her dark brown hair. But today, she was back with completely different hair that was so big and fluffy, you got the impression that it was going to take over her entire body and take on a life of its own. But she doesn't wear wigs at all. Oh no, not if Tatler has any say in the matter. Now again, I hate to keep beating the same drum, but didn't I tell you that her budget's been slashed? Not only is it obvious that Kate has to style herself, Kate had to pull out a dress she had worn back in 2019 to attend the BAFTAs in what was obviously a last-minute coerced attendance. Last year this time she was in Moustique, and she no doubt had it on her mind this year as well. Not only did she appear to be propped up by medication, her disturbing weight continues to alarm the public, and there appeared to be welts on her face or makeup. It's hard to tell. One thing is clear, Kate is a woman in crisis, and it turns out that she too could not avoid having her own name caught up in the Epstein debacle. Last week, we learned that the Marsden Clinic, where William and Kate are patrons, and where we learned that last year, for the 6 months that she was missing, amid the body doubles, the Photoshop fails, and dubious sightings that somehow were never captured on video, that Kate had been going there for treatment all along. This was months after the famous bench video, where Kate, or some version of Kate, claimed that cancer had been present, a point later revised by Rhiannon Mills, who described it as pre-cancerous cells. I wonder who told her that. You remember, right, folks? Then she famously advised cancer patients to get lots of sunlight, something that is not recommended. But how was she to know that? Come on, folks, give her a break. Well, it turns out that, surprise, yet another patronage of the Waleses is involved with Epstein. Last week we learned that Nicole Junkermann, a German investor seen here, was sending love messages back and forth to Epstein. Well, she happens to sit on the board as a trustee of the Marsden Clinic, where they told us Kate was being snuck in through the back door. So now we have yet another possible example of dirty money being laundered through another of William and Kate's charities/patronages. It's no wonder they've been turning up everywhere this week. And last week something else came out. According to Russell Meyer's new biography, William and Kate, Pippa wrote some, if not all, of the script for her bench video back in March of 2024. However, you may recall at the time, Kensington Palace and the Sunday Times told us that Kate wrote every bit of it herself. Now suddenly they're telling us that Pippa is the one. What a shit show. The press can't keep their story straight because Kate can't keep her story straight. And folks, the relationship between the two sisters have been fraught ever since the Great Disappearance. While we learned that Kate had undergone abdominal surgery at a London clinic, no one from her family came to visit her, and her husband only visited her once, and where no one saw her enter or leave,
literally covering every single entrance and exit.
Okay, now tell me again how these two people are the saviors of the British monarchy when they can't keep their stories straight, and while they're obviously in a madcap attempt to save themselves by distracting the public from what is undoubtedly the biggest scandal of the century. In the middle of all this mess, Kate had to leak to her proxies that Meghan couldn't be trusted because she had the audacity to set the record straight about a story that the palace had allowed to linger and fester for years, and which helped to cement in the public's minds a caricature of Meghan as a vicious bully who made the fair maiden cry. Only when years later, through Harry's memoir, we learned that the official narrative was just another one of the palace's fairy tales, and that it was Kate who attempted to pull rank on her future sister-in-law's nuptials by demanding that the children's dresses all be changed on the eve of the wedding. And for good measure, she had to throw in that the dress's uncomfortable fit made Charlotte cry. The intent was obvious. This was a last-ditch effort to throw a wrench in the wedding. And, well, that didn't work. The wedding continued as planned, but it did succeed in painting a picture of Meghan as uppity, brash, and aggressive, characterizations that Black women are all too familiar with. And this is so disingenuous. In the middle of the Prince Andrew mess, Russell Myers decides to tell us that the Sussexes can't be trusted. Obviously, a cynical ploy to distract from William and Kate's names being associated in the Epstein debacle and their attempt to distance themselves from Andrew. But it brings into sharp relief how much Kate Middleton likes using the press to project an alternate reality of herself to the world as a peacemaker, bastion of kindness, and advocate for mental health. Contrasting her true character, a calculating mean girl who routinely briefs the press lies in order to burnish her own image by tarnishing others. All of last year, we kept hearing about Kate brokering peace talks between Harry and the rest of the firm, and when it became apparent that Harry was paying her dust, the reports suddenly switched to Kate being done with Harry. If I didn't know better, I would say that Kate is a jilted woman, spurned and cast aside by her husband's brother, whom she believed would always be there to be a shoulder to cry on, or something more. Kate does not like competition. There's a reason she has no female friends. She has to be the focus of the male gaze. And any woman that falls into her orbit must either be iced out or subjected to smears and mischaracterizations. Now, folks, you remember when Natasha Archer unceremoniously quit last year, according to the press, to launch her own consulting business or something. Now, those of you who were paying attention will remember that on the way out, Natasha unprivated her Instagram account, revealing to the world that Meghan had been Kate's mood board for years, which was no surprise. But then Kate did something to retaliate that I'm sure most of you have probably forgotten, because, let's be real, it was a story published by one of Kate's minions in the press that was so vapid, you could almost catch the secondhand embarrassment from the poor schlep who had to write the nonsense. It was this thing that Natasha was behind the rift between William and Harry. You remember that, folks? This was all Kate, briefing the press against her former assistant who walked out on her. This was Kate's pathetic attempt to get back at her for unprivating her account. This is what she does. She talks about how much she is all about kindness and an advocate for mental health, when behind the scenes, she's settling scores by briefing the press, hiding behind royal experts and palace sources. I've said it before and I'll say it again. There is a reason why these two people found each other, because they are exactly the same. Which brings me to Pippa. It's been evident for some time now that the sisters are on the outs. Now, I have a theory about why that might be. Now, I've already made a few videos explaining what I believe the reason for the rift may be, citing various newspaper articles laying out the fact that Kate derailed Pippa's burgeoning career in media, and I still think that's a part of it, but I also think it has a lot to do with him, Thomas Kingston. It's not news that Pippa was romantically involved with Kingston, and when the news of his death was first reported, many suggested that there was possibly some romantic entanglement between him and Kate. Now, I never believed that. I've always leaned more towards him tracking the scent of a money trail, maybe even one that led to Epstein. Who knows? He did work for Schroders, one of the financial institutions handling finances for the royal family. Anyway, Kate always struck me as wanting to fit in too much into the family to ever do anything to jeopardize her position. But I gotta be honest with you folks. I'm beginning to think that maybe there is something to people's initial hunch about them having an affair. And I know it's all speculation. It's either that or Kingston was helping her somehow during her hiatus. Now, I'm not sure in what capacity. Some have suggested that maybe he was helping her to escape the firm. He was, after all, a hostage negotiator during his time in the Middle East. Now, the other day, Sarah Ferguson even said that no woman leaves the firm with her head intact. Keep that in mind. Anyway, I get the sensation that Kingston's death had something to do with the missing Kate business back in 2024, and that perhaps this poor man lost his life because of it. And well, for Pippa, who I'm sure still cared a great deal for him, this was just the last straw for her. So look, Pippa clearly has an axe to grind. She's done with the briefings, done with the scheming, and done with all the lies. And the idea that Kingston's demise may have had something to do with Kate is the final nail in the coffin for their relationship. So anyway, I don't want this to go on for too long. Leave your comments below, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll catch you all in the next one.